Hey guys, it's Leslie and welcome back to my channel. Just gonna do a quick wrap up from the Biannual Bibliothon. That was from the 14th through the, I don't know, add 7 days, 20th-ish, something like that. I actually had a really good reading week. I'm really proud of myself for what I read and how much I liked the books that I read. I really didn't have any that were bleh or hard to get through, so that's great. Let's just jump into it. The first book I read was the Not So Boring Letters of Private Nobody by Matthew Landis. This was for the Choose a Chapter challenge, I guess. This is a middle grade story about kids in, I guess, 8th grade, 7th grade who have to do a report on the Civil War, and the main boy is like a huge Civil War buff, and then he has to partner up with this girl who nobody really likes, and there's some drama, and that's where the story kind of unfolds. I really liked this. I think I gave it 4 stars. I loved the characters. I thought the story flowed really well. This is why middle grade is so good. It's, at least the ones that I've read, are not dumbed down to their audience, and they're just as enjoyable for adults. They go over really interesting themes like, I don't know, parental issues, or getting along with people, bullying, being smart versus being dumb, achieving, whatever. And I really, really liked this. I would say it's not the best middle grade I've ever read, but it's really quite good. So there's that. The next book I read was, I think, the predicted 5-star book, and I chose Lord of the Flies by William Golding. And you guys, I really liked this. It's so sad and quite honestly really disturbing, but the writing style is really great. I don't know if William Golding has written other things. I'm sure he has. I don't know anything else by him, but I would be intrigued to read anything else by him, because this book was just like, I couldn't stop reading it. The first page, you are like immersed in the setting and the characters, and just how are these kids gonna survive, these boys. It's all boys on an island. If you're not aware of what the Lord of the Flies is these boys basically get shipwrecked or plane wrecked on a island, and they have to kind of learn how to survive. And it's just really interesting with human nature, because you can absolutely see how these things happen, why these kids sort of devolve the way they do, and how they choose a hierarchy, and the actions that each kid decides to do and pursues. And I don't know, I really think this is a brilliant story, and I get it if you had to read it for school, which I never had to, why you would maybe not like it. I think it's why I hate Ender's Game to this day, because I was forced to read it in 9th grade, and I really, really hated that story, even though lots of people love it. But anyway, I really love this, and I did give it 5 stars. The next book I read was the group book, which was The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. And this is a YA sort of fantasy, and it's very similar to Hocus Pocus, the movie. I feel like it has a lot of that vibe. And I liked this. I could do a whole video on how I feel about YA these days, and maybe I will do that eventually. It's not a bad thing. It's just the way YA is written. I don't know if it's like insta-love, which is certainly in here, and it just it's not even that it's far-fetched or that even insta-love is bad. It's that it makes no sense. It's like, why are these people in love? Like, what happened? I don't know. Like, I feel like I've read insta-love that makes so much more sense and is much more believable than this, because personally I believe in love at first sight, so I don't see why insta-love can't be written a little bit better in YA. But overall, I gave this a 3-star. It was good. I was interested to read to the end. I liked the plot, which is usually what I would say about a YA book if I like it, because most YA books are really plot driven. And on that note, if you know any very character-driven YA books? Let me know in the comments, because I've been thinking about this and I don't know if I've ever read one. Maybe I'm just not aware of it or wouldn't classify that as a YA character-driven story, but let me know. But this was okay. I think if you like fantasy, if you like kind of creepier-ish stories, you'd like this one. This is a good Halloween read. After that, I read my own Voices challenge book, and that was Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. This is the one that's about, it's a memoir of her, graphic memoir, growing up in Iran during the Iran Revolution, I guess. And this is in like the early 80s. I really liked this, mostly because I didn't know anything about that or the culture of Iran before the revolution, which she does talk about a little bit. And the drawings are really cool. I like that it's in black and white. I feel like that gives a good feel of sort of the heaviness of the situation and her life growing up. The only thing I didn't love about this is that it ends super abruptly. Like literally it just, oh, we're at the last page and I feel like there's not much resolution. I did see that there's like a sequel or a part 2 or something like that. So I guess I'll have to pick that up. But overall, obviously a quick read. I gave it 4 stars and I am curious to see the movie. I don't really know anything about the movie. Like I don't know if it's a short film. I don't know if it's animated. I don't know what, but we'll see. I'll have to check it out. The last 2 books were the most surprising books, I think. And I sort of read them like back and forth. And that was, the first one I read was, or at least the first one I finished was The Unseen World by Liz Moore. This is the challenge for the book that's been on my TBR for over a year. And holy crap, guys, loved this book. This may be the best book I've read this year, next to maybe like Anne of Green Gables, which I read in March that I really liked. But this book is really, really close to perfection. It's a very character-driven book. If you don't know what it is, it's about a girl named Ada who is growing up in the 80s with her father. And her father has some secrets and she sort of eventually has to figure them out, and it's just so good. Like every character in it is so fleshed out. The pacing is spot on. It doesn't feel rushed. It doesn't feel slow. And I really, really loved it. There's so much to think about. There's so many situations that you're like, how would I react in this situation? Does this feel authentic? And it does kind of like jump back in time, like from the 80s to like the early 2000s. So when the main character is much older, or at least she's an adult, and it doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel out of place. It's just so good. If you love character-driven books, definitely read that book. It's so good. And I know this book was kind of hyped maybe in 2016. Like a lot of people were talking about it. Max from Well Done Books, I know he loves this book. And that's where I think I first heard about it. But it was just fantastic. I really, really recommend it. So glad I eventually got around to reading it. So thank you, Biannual Bibliothon, for that challenge. And the last book I finished, and I must say that I was gone on vacation from Wednesday to Friday morning. So I technically didn't finish The Unseen World and the next book until Sunday. So a little bit cheating, totally past the time, but whatever. I was gone for 2 days, so I feel like I can add those 2 days at the end. But the last book I finished was IQ by Joe Ide. Loved this book too. This was so like captivating. It's basically I don't know how you'd say it. Like, I know that it sort of has influence from Sherlock Holmes. So the main character is a bit of a detective, but he's like a high school dropout, but he's super smart. This takes place in like LA, and it's definitely from the lower like society part, you know, drug dealers and people like that. And definitely the language is rough, so I mean, R-rated for sure in that, but it's so funny and raw, and there's like just, it's so good. The voice, I've never heard of this author before, Joe Ide. I don't know, really liked it. And I will say that his little blurb says that this was inspired by his early experiences, so maybe-ish own voices, although the main character is African American and not Japanese American like the author. But I don't know, if you like mysteries and you want something a little bit different, definitely check this out. It's just over 300 pages. It's not very long, and this is the challenge of someone else's TBR, which I used Jimmy Fallon because he did a segment on whatever, The Tonight Show, talking about some summer reads he wanted to read, and this one was on it. So that's where I got the idea to read it. Really, really liked it. Highly recommend, and I think there are going to be more books with this character. I'm definitely going to check them out. I did give this a 4 stars. The mystery towards the end is not as compelling necessarily, but I still really like the writing style, and I did enjoy it. So 4 stars is great. That is my wrap up for reading. It was really a fun week. I'm telling you, people, I think readathons are slightly intimidating, but for someone like me who I enjoy games, and I don't know, it feels silly, but it's like I'm competing with myself, and for some reason that gives me a little more like ammunition to read. Like I feel like I'm gonna read some books, and I just get really excited about it, like making out my TBR and all of that. So I end up reading a lot in one week, and it doesn't feel slumpy. It doesn't feel, I don't know, it feels good. So maybe I would recommend, if you're in a bit of a reading slump, join in a readathon. Just say, hey, I haven't read a book in 3 months, so I'm gonna read 7 in 1 week. You never know, it might work out for you. I felt it was a really successful week, and I'm really glad I read those books because they were probably some of the best of the year for me. And the video challenges were super fun. If you're interested in those, they're already up. Some of them are super cringe. Some of them are, well, they're all kind of cringy, but whatever. And I have my little craft that I made. Oh my gosh, it's so cute. Even though I really never read from my Nook, but it really works. Anyway, that's a video if you want to watch it. And yeah, I hope everyone else who participated in the Bibliothon had a really fun time. I know the BookTube-a-thon is coming up like a week from now or so. I might have to jump in on that. I never really thought I was going to, but you know, I'm not above getting on a bandwagon. So let's make it happen. So maybe I'll see a TBR at some point. And I guess I'll talk to you later. Bye.